So I know we talked about it briefly, but so I'll only go over the major points that maybe other people also want to hear for what we're gonna do today or tonight rather. Um, but basically, I've got two positions prepared, so like a total of 4 games, and they're two like very different styles of position. So we have the first position, and basically you just need to be in chess.com/live, just like you would be for sub battle or anything. And the game's just gonna start, and it's gonna start at a specific position. So it's not gonna start at the starting position. Yeah, it's just gonna, but you're just gonna drop in like you know, you're just gonna drop from the sky, Fortnite style, baby. All right, so it's definitely going to be, yeah, there's definitely going to be a timer on this. It's going to be a blitz game, like I mentioned. I don't want him to have too much time to think about it. Obviously, it's not a bullet game, but yeah, I don't want this to take too long. The idea is that it's quick, fast, you get to see the instincts in the position, and then we'll analyze it after. So here we go. All right. Okay, so here's the position. Just started here. My opponent's just played the move h3. Got an e45 position. You guys probably are going to recognize this from the Habits series. Like it is a familiar type of position from e45. So I'm going to play bishop e6, offer the trade. And the reason I've done this is I have a little bit better control over these squares. And also I have an open f-file, which, got a bishop and a rook looking at that. It's something I might use in the future. My opponent's just gone here. I'm actually a little bit tempted to kick him away with b5. I think that he might be going bishop e3, looking to trade more pieces. So I'm actually going to play b5, and we'll see what he does here. Okay, knight back. Now, in a position like this, I'm definitely expecting that you move like d4, probably on the cards for him. I'm going to say that I'm okay with that for the moment, even though it's kind of a lie. And I'm going to play a move that is a little bit closer to a plan. When I go here, I'm definitely looking to make some inroads over here. Knight g4. Okay, this looks like I would say a little bit of a desperate move here. Looks like a move desperate to trade. Takes, always possible, but I'm going to continue with the real reason I brought my queen here, which was this plan. I'm going to play my knight to h5, looking to get into the f4 square. I have an open file there. And also with my bishop here, knight g3 is actually going to be a move to hit the rook. So for example, if he plays queen e2, I would have a fork. Okay, my opponent has played queen to e1. Now, I already mentioned to you guys knight g3 was one of my ideas here, and it makes even more sense now because the rook is just trapped. But what you guys might notice is after knight g3, trapping the rook, my opponent might be able to play d4, takes, or not even takes back, takes, and all of a sudden he can take there. He can take my knight because there's no more pin. And after d4, if I take the rook, he takes my bishop, and my knight on f1 is trapped. So this is what we call a trickster, man. This is what we call a trickster. So probably what I'm going to end up doing here is something a little bit different. I think I'm going to continue my plan more or less. I'm going to drop my bishop back to get out of d4. Okay, my opponent is going here. I'm going to continue my plan of knight f4. We're going to give up on the knight g3 thing. And there is 2 seconds increment on this game. Just to help me out. That's for me. That's for my time pressure. He takes me. I'm going to capture towards the middle, so I'll pre-move that. So we do have some nice tactics here, and this is a result of us taking here earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and execute one of them, which is a nice little removal of the defender here. Okay, keep in mind, because he moved the rook here, this is also hanging. So just notice that for later. Okay, and later looks like now. Let's take it. Pawn is a pawn. Well, I really do want to take it, to be honest, but I just noticed I can probably put him in the coffin here with queen h5. Very tough for him to make a move here. I respect it. I think I'm probably going to take with the rook. I could take with the pawn, but he would go rook there, rook there. Now let's double up. I'm going to bring that rook into f3 and make the exact same threat. There we go. And that's a mate there. And that's a mate there. Okay. Okay. We're able to get the first game. I'm honestly not going to talk too much about the game because I'd like most of the chatter about the position to happen once we've both played both sides. So pretty much, without further ado, I'm just going to set up the next game and just get into it. But we'll chat about this, both games, afterwards. All right, I got the white pieces here, and boy, does this position look a lot better. One thing that happened in the previous game was my opponent played h3. Good habit, for sure. But I'm going to go a little bit of a different path here. I'm going to go rook e1. And if this move happens, I'm probably going to recycle my knight to this square and play h3. And it'll mostly be a waste of time for black to go here. Okay, so bishop g4. It's a pin. First things first, if the bishop takes and I've got knight or queen to take back, it's no good. So I'm going to play h3 and ask him what he's doing. Okay, he decided to take. If he went back, then I would have brought this knight to g3, like I mentioned. It's a nice plan to remember. But he just takes, so I'm going to take back with the knight, freeze my bishop on c1, and also controls the center. So it should be a lot better than taking with the queen. So definitely think we have a nice position here. My opponent has given me the bishop pair. Very happy about that. And he's also doing something which I would say benefits the bishop pair. He's opening the position, d5. The first thing that I'm looking at is, hey, does that just win a pawn in the middle? If I think the answer is yes, then I'm probably going to go for it. But regardless, I think I'm going to take this pawn because it opens the position up. And that has to be good. So I'm going to start with this. So one thing to consider here is knight takes, rook takes, and then bishop takes f2, king takes f2, queen f6 check, which is hitting my king and hitting my rook. That's probably the main reason against playing knight takes e5, for sure. Just this bishop f2 and queen f6 thing, because there's not really like a nice way to defend the rook, but a little more calculation is going to let me know that I can play queen f3 at the end there, which will interpose the check. And also, if he takes my rook, I'll be taking his knight on d5. So I think that calculation works out, but really, I would probably say that it's advisable to take this pawn anyway because we're castled. We haven't done anything wrong. Got an open position. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and hopefully she works out. C6 looks like an extremely reasonable move. Probably he had to do it, honestly speaking. This thing didn't work, and I think now there's pretty much one main move to consider. There's a lot of decent moves here, I would say. D4 looks above and beyond like a fantastic move. Queen f3 would be the other one, but I'm gonna go with a nice simple move, d4. Okay, our rook's under attack. I think the simplest thing here is just to go all the way back and make sure we don't drop it. Okay, he's offering a trade. Usually in these positions, when they offer a trade like this, if they take your rook and you have to take with the queen, it's a bit annoying. So I'm going to make sure that happens to him. Then I'm going to develop my bishop, cover my back rank. So now we can move the queen finally. We got the bishops covering all these squares. So I'm going to go to f3. Let's bring the rook over. Okay, and I'm probably going to play h4 because I want to play g3 here. I'm going to slowly take these squares. You see how his pawns are going on light squares? Starting to give me a lot of light square penetration options. Let's go here. Trades we don't mind. Okay, bring the bishop back into the game. We're going to look at that square right now. Target that. It's a checkmate. He stops it, and I'm going to bring my king in the middle. I'm anticipating a trade. I'm up one pawn. I have the bishop pair. Okay, we're going to still go towards the middle. We're going to probably start to think about kicking him out here. I'm not sure if we want to kick him out just yet. Let's fix his pawns like this. Fix those pawns there. Okay, he's gone a4. Let's take that and see if I can threaten that pawn. That's the nice thing about having light square bishop. He doesn't share that privilege. He doesn't share that privilege. Let's attack that. Okay, he's gonna miss it. I think I'm gonna throw this in. If he goes there, that's a fork. Yeah, I just had a little feeling he might do that. And if he goes there, I'm even gonna add insult to injury and go to a5. Okay, he doesn't. Let's take. And we'll push, and then we'll follow up with this. Oh, thanks. It's gonna go there anyway, pal. Oh, I was gonna go there anyway as well. So, get a queen here. I'd like to checkmate him with my bishops. Be nice if he played here. It was not to be. It was not to be. So we played the position from both sides. We played the position from both sides. I'm going to jump back in Discord with him. We're going to analyze and talk about both of the games. So let me get my headphones back. Howdy.
Oh. Hey, man. I forgot there was increments. I was like, I'm gonna time this motherfucker out. Let's go. And I realized the time was going up. I was like, oh fuck, all these moves are terrible.
You thought I was going to let myself get flagged on my own goddamn show? That
Yes.
increment was there for me, not you.
That's true. Oh, I thought you were gonna be time odds. You're being a generous lad. Come on.
Yeah, some people are wondering, could I hear him throughout the game? The answer is no.
I don't think you needed to listen to my fucking calculations of mate and ones.
So how, as Yasser likes to say, was it as good for you as it was for me?
I'm feeling a bit raw. I think yeah, I know. I think I think a little bit of the game I was able to hold on, and then I think the first game I saw the mate in one pretty I saw the mate coming pretty early. I saw you weaken that side, and I don't know. I just kind of panicked trying to figure out how to get pieces over there to protect my king, but I think the second game I did a little bit better to get myself more to an end game, but
Definitely.
in the end, you know, that's how she goes sometimes.
That's the way she goes. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share my screen in Discord so that you can like keep up in real time, and then I'll just bring the games up on an analysis board here, and we can look at them.
Sure, sounds great.
Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the first game. By the way, did you have an innate preference about like which side you just preferred to play in general?
I found Or in terms of the position that you're asking, or
Yeah,
the
in
one we
terms of
just
like just the starting
yeah.
position when you see it, would you like rather be white or black?
So I'd rather be black. I think I mentioned it in my very excellent chess commentary that I provided. H6 was nice to see already.
Right.
I don't want to be back ranked. That's my almost my ultimate goal of being 700 rated. So that was nice to see. Yeah, that's why I did it first there. I think my commentary showed that I wanted to have breathing room for my king.
Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense. And so in this position, you played. So you started with h3. You started with white. I did this intentionally because um, I thought that the way that white would play this position would be a little bit more specific than black. And I thought that if I started with white, it might be a little too much of a giveaway as to maybe what white should get up to. So I wanted you to start with white because it's black. You know, it's not too complicated to think of what black might do, but white's position looks a little bit different. We have this pawn on c3, which always like
Yes.
tickles the d4 idea. White might play it at
Yeah.
some point. But I thought, okay, let's give you the white pieces and see what you thought. So you went with h3. I thought there was a great chance that would happen. It's not a bad move at all, but I definitely expected it, and I would offer the explanation that I did when I played white, which is that if black plays bishop to g4, so if I just do like a random move here, actually, let me get into. For some reason, I can't make different moves at the moment. I can only play through the game, so let me find a way to change this. Maybe if I like put it in another analysis board.
Sure.
Let me see.
I mean, I'm a habits bra, so I see
There we
a
go.
weak a smothered king. I want to get some breathing room. Give the king
Absolutely.
some.
And that's why I thought there's a good chance he might do it. And here's my explanation for why it's not necessary. So if I give a random move for white, or even let me just play what I did. Like if you think about the second game and you went bishop here, as always, when you pin something, you're pretty much going to get challenged immediately by your opponent, or even if it's you, it'd be a good thing to do. To challenge the bishop. Now, if you go backwards, what's going to happen is I'm going to finish executing my plan, which I mentioned in the second game, which is knight to f1, opening up my bishop, allowing the queen to hit the d4 square so that maybe pawn push to d4 is possible. And also that knight is jumping to this square, g3. Now, once I get to g3, I'm going to hit your bishop. If I'm able to trade knight for bishop, then for basically no reason, then we can sort of say that your bishop g4 wasn't really worth it for you. Right? When you play bishop g4, if you ever give away bishop for knight, it should always be for something, for some reason. Maybe my pawns have to get doubled. You know, maybe you win a pawn in the center that this knight was protecting. It has to be for some reason. In general, if you give away your bishop for knight for no reason, then it's probably going to benefit your opponent. So knight f1,
I
knight
decided to
g3.
go that knight. I was looking to take with the queen back because I think that's very common. But then when with the knight, I was like, oh boy,
Well,
developing more pieces.
if it happened to you, bishop g5, bishop takes, it would be queen
Yeah.
takes. But honestly, that's
Right.
only because the knight's not available.
Right.
So probably the reason you see it more often is that the knights are often developed like this, and so the queen's the only thing available to take. And that's why I was saying white's position is a little bit different than black's. We got this maybe awkward knight on d2. You're more used to it on c3. So the knight being able to take back means you're not trading bishop for knight on f3. You're trading bishop for knight on d2. And that's something you have to get used to when pieces can just replace the same piece on a square like that. It's the same with pawns. If you play this and then you trade on e4, you're not trading your center pawn on d5 for the one on e4. You're trading it for the one on d3.
Right.
So that's a way to think about trades, and it might help you not do them or not make bad trades, because obviously if you take this bishop and that knight and we compare them, it's really beneficial for me if I should just get rid of this for this.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So what I would have done is I would have brought my knight here, and your bishop would have been faced with a choice. You got to trade my knight on f3, or let me trade for you, or you got to drop back to this square And is your bishop that happy on this square? I mean, it's kind of just hitting a couple pawns, and
Yeah.
you'd maybe much rather have it back here opposing this bishop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I didn't play h3, and then I invited you to play bishop g4, because with the knight on d2, as opposed to c3, we have a lot more options of dealing with this pin. It's actually,
Right.
we like want them to pin us because we might punish them for it.
Yeah. Oh, I fell into a trap card there.
Yeah, that was a trap card. Yeah, I had to make sure that we picked a position where gopher was going to go wrong on move number 1.
That sounds about right.
So you went h3, totally reasonable move, but it's in the category of move that I would just say is unnecessary. Certainly not a mistake. So here, takes. Knight c4.
I took it.
Yeah, no, so this is fine. You go knight c4. Was your plan initially to play like the bishop here?
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought process. Was get the I was pretty scared of not having that bishop developed,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wanted to get it out.
And you don't have a lot of squares, right, that you can play?
No.
Exactly.
No.
So when you went here, basically you're thinking the same way that I just mentioned, but you're choosing a slightly more risky square, or a square where you can be pushed around, like b5.
Yeah.
Because imagine if you did the move I was talking about, and you did knight f1, it's the exact same idea, but just like a safer, more comfortable way to do it. So as white,
I feel like as a 7. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying as a 700 player, I definitely fall to the fallacy of knights can move backwards as well, and so I wouldn't even have ever thought about f1 as a potential square for my knight.
Yep. Yeah, it's something that you never think of, and then once you're told it, it's definitely something that is a big part of e4, e5 positions. Like this maneuver, once you're familiar with it, you start to realize like it's almost good in like every position that looks like this.
Right.
So you chose the same idea, and the only difference was I could go here, and I knew that your knight would have to go this square, so it sort of delay you from doing what I knew you wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's what I was.
This chess thing I'm on.
It should be a streamer.
Yeah. On Facebook Gaming, right?
Oh, obviously. Yeah, only the best platforms, the reliable ones like Mixer.
Yeah. Never fails.
So I hit you with this move, and my idea was to support that square, so I could put my knight there. If I put my knight there early, I've mentioned in like the Habits series that because it's loose, oftentimes you can like sacrifice in the middle and then win my knight on the side of the board.
Right.
Just by a tactic. So this is to support that square, and also maybe I want to jump out to this square myself with the queen, but it's mostly to support the knight so I can hop around.
Yep.
I want to use the open file. So you go here. It's actually not a bad move, but it just doesn't affect what I'm doing. So I'm happy to move around you, basically.
Yeah.
If you were able to force an exchange, then I think you'd be happier with that.
Right. I guess I don't even know why. I don't remember why I put my knight there.
I think you were trying to make room for the bishop. At least that's what I thought.
Yes, that is exactly what I mean.
So let me explain what you were doing.
Now. That's true.
And then you played here, which I would say that if you were interested in doing this move, I was curious why you didn't follow up right away with it.
Yeah. So so if I put my bishop there first, I mean obviously I could bring my knight to defend it back.
Yeah.
But I guess my thought process was, I mean, now that I see the double pawns, it doesn't make as much sense, but I tend to put my queen on the same file as the other queen. Or I'm thinking in my head, like I want to just add defenders to that pawn because I feel like it's going to be under attack really soon. So I wanted to get the queen to the e file, because if I bring my bishop out to e3, then if you take, I can just take back with the queen, and that's a little bit of development. I can get my queen out, because I was worried my queen wasn't involved in the game at all. But yeah.
Yeah, if you could, basically if I did take, it would be nice because your queen would jump up to a pretty decent central square where, you know, it hits a lot of relevant squares in the position, as well as the center. So that makes sense. There's one thing that I didn't do here because it might get very tactically sketchy. But this move is something to watch out for because I do have a pin on your pawn.
Oh, yeah. I did not see that.
So you actually kind of like trapped your own rook, basically.
Oh, boy.
By doing that. And the reason I didn't do it is because no point in really getting into this, but I think after the move d4, you're basically cutting the pin and you're hitting my bishop at the same time. So This was a little bit worrisome, which is why I didn't do it. But generally speaking, when you see the knight over here, especially because you're a habits guy, you're often going to have that move in, not covering
Yeah.
that square. This
Yeah.
is a big idea. Like that square can be very tender, especially when there's a bishop
Yeah.
lined up on your king.
Yeah. I was worried about that. I'm definitely susceptible to long range bishop snipes.
Yep.
So I again did not see that. I'm not surprised I didn't see that.
No, that one's definitely a bit more advanced. And in e45, you can often expect, either your bishop or your opponent's bishop to be lined up against the king like that.
Right. Oh boy. This chess thing's hard, I tell ya.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to, that's for sure. It really does. I finished my plan here, which was like I wanted to go here, and I'm supported by the rook, so that if you decided to take me, then basically this guy would be unopposed for the rest of the game. Like you're never getting rid of him. So that's why I did kind of like your move of like, hey, let me get rid of that bishop, so it's not ever going to be bothering me.
Yeah, I evaluated taking both. That I am a little bit. I'll take a little pride in my 700 rating there to say like I kind of thought about okay if I take the knight, your rook will come into the game and then you're hitting my knight again. Like, it's gonna cause me a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what, that bishop, I hate it. Want to get rid of it. Let's just get it off the board.
Right. No, 100%. The resulting position, because of your queen's position here, in fact, if your queen was back on the starting square, it would be guarding this pawn, which you noticed was hanging. And also my little trick here, where I won your pawn, the queen would actually be guarding the knight as well.
Ah, smart.
So for a number of reasons, it was actually like, because you had moved your queen, you were in more trouble than as if you had never moved it. And I think it goes to show that like the e1 square for your queen, that's not developing the queen. The rooks still aren't touching. It's not off the last rank anywhere. It's not threatening anything. It's just not a square you normally see people develop their queens to, except grandmasters, because I've got one over here. But definitely, this is the reason why the position was so awkward for you, was your queen on e1.
Yeah.
So
don't worry, man. The ladies always make me awkward, so that's all right.
and now it's your turn to hand it right back to them.
Okay.
I understand now. I understand now. You go here, and then here's where things start to fall apart. It's pretty much in this position because I've got 1, 2 threats. You guard one of them. You let me have this pawn hanging as another threat. Plus, you don't stop this one. So this is where the wheels start to fall off a bit, and it's easy to see how the position can collapse. Right, and this is just tactical stuff. Small improvement, I would say. Hey, guard your pawn while attacking my rook probably is a bit better.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the last thing you really could have fixed, because after this, there really is no stopping that. This was actually pretty resourceful by you to keep the game going a few more moves, because otherwise...
Yeah, I think I tried to, like, when you played the queen there, I kind of threw in the towel a little bit, but I figured, you know what, I'm going to go swinging here.
Fair. Yeah, and then, from here, there's no point in looking at the rest of it, because there's just the extra piece, and then the checkmate is just impossible to stop.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think when you put the knight move over onto the the H file, I was immediately, my thought process was like, oh boy, like my pawn structure's about to get really weak over here, because I know like you're gonna come in and say hello to all my little friends there. So yeah, couldn't do anything.
I think the main takeaways are like, when I see the move knight c4, I see knight e3, I see knight g4, I see a lot of wasted moves. Whereas like if that knight goes to f1, same plan, but just much more efficient. Knight f1 is safe, right? Knight f1 also covers this square. Not that you would ever foresee that was my plan, but it's just that's what happens when you make like good moves, is they do things that are good that you don't even notice or something.
Yeah. I think again, one of my biggest weaknesses is knight movements. I don't play. I'm always very happy to trade knights off, because I think they destroy me in the end.
Fair. I was about to say that is a perfect indication of what happened in our next game. Was you took my knight off for no reason, right? So I understand. And the last like major thing is that there should definitely be a focus on you trying to play this move, just in general. Because you've got that pawn there. That's a way to shut my bishop down from the diagonal, and it's a very natural progression for this position. Move your knight, have your queen support that, and just go for d4. That's going to be a good one to gain the center, push my pieces back, and a lot of my threats with this bishop on the long diagonal would be stuffed.
Go for it, eh? All right.
Just go for it,
It's
Topher.
supported. That's
So
fair.
that was you with the white pieces, and now probably in a more interesting way, we'll take a look at this game, because now we get the perspective of, you've already seen me play one side and you've already played the other side. So now there's a lot of comparisons that can be made.
Yeah, I immediately forgot how you checkmated me, so I figured, you know what, all right, let's just send her.
So here we go. Let's look at maybe the other perspective here. So I did rook e1, and we already sort of touched on this. Some people are wondering, was the position equal at the start? Definitely, yeah. It's pretty much like an opening position, so it's not.
Yeah, you wouldn't give me a disadvantage. Come on, Amon. You're not that kind of guy.
No, the only disadvantage I claimed was increment.
Yeah.
I had to take that one. But yeah, it's just a regular e4, e5 opening position that, white's going to have a slight advantage just because it's chess, and white usually has a slight advantage.
Right.
So bishop g4. So we touched on this. Not going to go over it again, but yeah, we talked about how basically you don't want to be giving away bishop for knight if it doesn't benefit you specifically in any way. Because all that happened was my knight from here jumped out of the way. I can play d4 now with my queen supporting, my bishop's open, and I have the two bishops with no skin off my back, basically.
So the only other move I was contemplating, because I didn't want to drop my bishop back, because I was worried it was going to get trapped. That's obviously happens to me countless games. So the only other move I was contemplating was bringing it to e6 to try to trade it off, essentially. That's the other move I thought about, but
yep.
I don't know if that one is a better move.
And if you go to e6, basically you can make the comparison to last game, which was when you played white, you played h3, and I played bishop e6.
Yep. Okay.
And in this game, if you play here, and then you go here, and then you let me play h3, and then you go back to e6, then I've got h3 and a rook here when the bishop's on e6. So I basically just have one extra move.
Gotcha.
So if you're planning on doing that, just go there straight away.
Gotcha. All right. Makes sense.
And it wouldn't be a bad move straight away at all. It would make sense for sure, but it makes less sense to go here and then back.
Right.
So yeah, once you went here, I thought it was either this or you'd commit to this.
Yeah.
So takes, and then you do something which I'm happy to see, because you just gave me the bishops, and now you're opening things up.
Okay.
So that's like one thing you don't do after another.
I thought you said you're going to be happy to see because it's a good move. But, all right, opening up the position for the opponent, not a bad idea for the opponent.
Yeah, happy to see as a competitor, not happy to see as an instructor.
Damn.
Yep, unfortunate. D5 is a move that makes a lot more sense. Like, let's say you had a bishop behind it, supporting it or something. You'd be opposing my bishop. That'd be much better. Here, my bishop has no opposition. So I'm looking at a nice diagonal to your king. I'm hitting the knight. And most importantly, obviously D5 is a mistake just because of the material that you drop in the middle.
Yep.
So to prepare it, you'd need to get your rook over, somehow watch this pawn, and then go for that move. But yeah, this on its own is not going to cut it. That center pawn is very, very valuable, and especially if I have small advantages, they start adding together. It's oh, got your center pawn, I got two bishops, and even though that's nothing the same as being up a piece or anything, it's a pretty significant advantage.
Yeah, I think the moment I played that knight move, I was like, oh, well, goodbye, center pawn. The one advantage I may have had.
Yeah, and so I took it, and I was mentioning that you played, I think, a great move here, c6.
Yeah, I played c6. I took some time on this position to think about how I was gonna.
You did, yeah. This was good
defend.
Because the only other idea which I was looking at was you might have a trick to try to take my rook.
Come on. That's advanced. I'm not yet at the next habits video. We'll see that in the next one.
But you have to treat everyone as if they're capable of finding every move.
Fair.
So
fair.
I definitely didn't calculate this at all.
I appreciate the confidence in that.
For the people wondering, I do have this move Queen F3. so that after he takes my rook, I'm able to take the knight, and then I'm going to have 2 bishops for one of his rooks, which is a better trade for me. So it wouldn't have worked out anyway, but just one of those things that I had to really
Feeding me
consider.
some hope, Amon. You're just giving me a little hope and then just snatching it right away. You
Sorry,
bastard.
bud. Sorry, bud. That's what
That's okay.
analysis is for.
Yeah.
So you go here, and honestly, the way you played the rest of this game is like pretty solid. It's just that
Yeah.
you had these things going against you from the beginning of the game.
Right.
Like the extra pawn in the middle, like the bishop pair. So, I mean, you drop back, attack my rook, you go to the open file, takes, bring the rook to the middle. Like, you know, all this stuff is good. I bring my rook to the middle, you go here. And yeah, to be honest, like, you can't really complain about your last, like, 5-6 moves here. If anyone is saying, like, oh, black's position is bad or something, it's not because of the last 5 moves. It's just, it's part of the position. You are down a pawn, and you're not going to be able to get it back anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah. This
That's it's fair. I felt the pressure coming, so I was getting a little scared.
Yeah, that's fair. The bishops, I mean, when you can't force any trades and you can't, like, basically you're just sort of sitting there waiting for me to do something, which is never a pleasant feeling.
Yep.
Never
Sorry,
pleasant.
my here. Waiting for someone else to do something.
So
Goddamn.
f6 is the last like sort of major thing I want to talk about, just because the major imbalance in the position is this, because we both have a dark square bishop, and if the major imbalance is that I have a light squared bishop, the last thing you should be doing is weakening your light squares. Putting all your pawns on dark squares means they only control dark squares, which means all of your light squares are super weak as a result.
Yep.
And I'm the only one in possession of a light squared bishop, so if you were ever moving pawns here, you would probably, like, I'm not saying you should move pawns. It's probably better not to, but if you were, they should probably end up on light squares like that.
Okay.
It's just more solid dealing
sense.
with that bishop.
Yeah, it's always a problem I find, and I thought about this when I saw the position for the first time in the last game. One of my biggest weaknesses is I don't get my pawns going early enough. I find in any game I play, I'm always on the back foot with pawn development. Or in the end game, I'm always, past pawns are non-existent for me. So I thought to myself here, like, I need to get my king moving. Again, under the idea that I was able to time you out. So I was like, oh, let's get some pawn moves. Random pawn moves. Let's just throw them in there.
That's true. That's true. The thing about random pawn moves is that whenever I've done them in my Habits series, they've always been on the queen side.
Right.
I've never done a random pawn move in front of my king. Those are the ones that usually stay relatively stationary. And you know how I mentioned, like, you have this bishop and you might want to put your pawns like that. It's sort of indicated by the moves that I just did. Like, my last 2 moves were pawn here and pawn here. The same that I was mentioning for you, because I see that you have a dark square bishop and I'm looking to put my pawns on dark squares, so you basically can't go to the squares you want to go to. You can't attack anything in the middle game here.
Oh, you're a sneaky one, Amon. See, that's a GM level tactic. That's probably more like a 800 level tactic.
Practice what you preach, Gotta set a good example.
Yeah.
But yeah, f6 I wasn't too happy to see as an instructor this time. A5 is a good one. Like, this is a lot better. Rook e8 makes a lot of sense. I'm starting to infiltrate your light squares here. These moves are all not bad at all, and you cover my checkmate threat, which is really good.
Yeah.
So
I will fully admit, though, hand up in the air, I did not see that checkmate. I just put my queen there because I want to trade it off.
Hey, when you're following good habits, good things happen.
Yeah.
And then from here, I don't think there's there's much to find here, because hey, it's an endgame. You're down a pawn, 2 bishops. Black is, like, significantly worse, especially with these pawns like this. And time was getting low for everybody, so it's not expected that things would have gone anything different than how they did. It's just really tough to deal with bishops that can attack this side of the board and this side of the board from one square. Like, it's just really tough.
Yeah, this was tough. Well, that check move absolutely
that
destroyed
hurts a
me.
little bit,
that one hurt my soul a little bit, and then I thought, oh, I'll use my bishop to cover it up, get like a dirty stain, and then you won that too, and then it was just cry myself to sleep,
Yeah. You blew a 3-1 lead.
Oh yeah. Never done that before. Never seen one of those before.
Yeah, so this was the position that we went for, and I think the takeaway is like I would definitely say white is slightly preferred, but more preference. I just think it's more flexible for white to have this pawn here, meaning
fair.
that the bishop
Fair
can always
point.
be tucked away in case it gets like attacked or something. We're always threatening d4, and we can take back with a pawn, as opposed to black's d5 can only be taken with the knight. And this is not something we need to worry about because of the flexibility of the knights sort of like watching over one another, and that if black goes there, then we attack the bishop.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, again, I would not have seen that, but that's what I do. I see a pinned queen, I'm gonna try it, but clearly those tactics won't work on maybe people above my level, but
Yep.
gotta
Yep.
try it.
And with black, I think it's a little bit tougher to find a concrete plan, but the idea of like taking an open file and the double pawns and then trying to work with your pieces around that is something that I think works really well, especially around your rating level. If you offer a trade, like they're gonna snap it off, right? It's
Yeah.
gonna be taken,
See,
and if you get used to how to play with like an open file like this, you'll probably have a lot of success. It's like you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get that position almost every time, because if you offer the trade, they're probably going to take it.
Yeah, well, that's habits right there, I tell you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you would take it, so they would take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Sounds about right.
So that's why I chose this position first off, because obviously most people that you're going to run into are going to be playing e45. Let's be clear. And most people are going to get it, maybe they'll reach this position just fine. But after this, it's like it can be a little aimless, even the habits, if you follow it without the plans. It's like you sort of bring the rooks to the middle, queen up is like, and then what type of thing. So this is just a bit of an addition on top of those habits we have, is that we got to start thinking a little more proactively about like, well, actually, pinning a knight to a queen is actually not that great when there's a knight supporting it. That's
Already
one of the
supporting,
things.
yeah.
And
That's
then
smart, yeah.
the double pawns can actually be an asset as opposed to something you want to
That's
avoid.
So that's why, I mean, long story short, I actually didn't bring my bishop out right away because I'm really afraid of double pawns. Just in general, in my head, I'm like, oh, double pawns weak. But it makes sense why the trade is not too bad.
Yep.
Yeah. Fucking hell.
Fucking hell, bud. Well, that was the first position. The second position is a lot different, like significantly different. So,
oh boy.
I don't know if you'll find it easier or harder, but I got one more position for you. He's got the white pieces here. Okay. Let's go in here. D5 is a threat. I'm down material, so I'm down a full exchange here, knight for rook. I'm definitely going to be playing this move and looking to establish the knight on D5. Okay, let's put the knight on the outpost, middle of the board, isolated pawn. Definitely want to put the knight here. Okay, I was definitely obviously not planning to take the bishop. I'm down material, so I would never do something like just exchange pieces, but still, going back is a reasonable move. He's covering a lot of my knight's jumps, so that move makes a lot of sense. He has a dark square bishop. I'm generally trying to get my pawns on light squares, but I'm also not trying to commit too much. When you're down material, every pawn you move forward, you obviously can't move backwards, and you really start to notice it when you're down material. You start to have regrets. So I think what I'm going to do is just bring my king to the middle of the board. Let's continue. Bring the king. Okay, he's doing something similar. I'm just gonna finish this this idea of getting that king directly in the middle. D7's probably the best square. It's on a light square, so it can't be bothered by this bishop in any way. Light squares are good for most of my pieces. And also, it's off the e-file, so I'm not getting pinned. But it covers the squares on the e-file so that this rook can never invade. So I think this is the ideal square for the king. Okay, he goes g3, and I think I'm probably going to go h5. The thing is, in a middle game, it's really nice to put all your pawns on dark squares to take care of this bishop. But thankfully, he's going to listen to me from the lesson I taught him last game, and he's probably going to do that. So I'm going to go here, and he's going to get really excited. He's going to go there, and then he's going to realize later on, when I teach him the second lesson, that all his pawns are on dark squares, and they shouldn't be that way for an endgame. Okay, he's attacking my pawn here. A move that I mentioned earlier, which is very in line. It guards the pawn, everything is g6. Then all my pawns will be on light squares, which is really good. So I'm just going to play this one, defends, and then we'll look to maybe kick this rook out. What the fuck is he doing? Well, I don't know what to tell you guys. I think I'm going to take it. That looks like the best move. Guys who play chess this way, oh my god. Good lord. Guys who play chess this way definitely deserve to get flogged. This, this is some real nasty stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go here. I'm just curious what he does. I'm gonna just activate my king. Okay, he's putting, like I said, the long con, guys. He's putting all the pawns on dark squares. Every single one for this endgame with dark square bishops, which is atrocious. Now he's losing a pawn. And I think he will... Okay, let's play this move. Just block everything off over here. And now I'm going to use my one extra pawn that I have over here and make a pass pawn. Let's go here. You can't do this, where I take. Now we'll just go make a pass pawn. I'm just going to go here, so now I get to take this for free. I'm going to go here and make sure he can't move up the board. We want to take this. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Now, do you guys remember the move that he did earlier? You remember when he took my piece on d5, right? Now, like I said, people who do that deserve to be flogged. I think you're going to witness something a little bit nasty here. Yeah, we're going to encroach slowly but surely. Okay, now we're going to make sure to make this video as instructive as possible. Now, whenever you have a chance to give back the gift that you have in this world, I think you should. And one of the gifts I have is being a chess educator. So I'm going to make sure to do my best and educate as much as possible here. Okay. I'm going to make sure that he takes my queens. Dude, sometimes your opponent is so low rated that you're trying to lose and you mate them. That's what just occurred to me. I was trying to give him my queen, and I checkmated him. Definitely didn't mean to checkmate him. Well, I hope that was instructive. Remember, guys, if you get good enough, you'll always be able to checkmate your opponent, even if you try to lose. That's the level you want to aspire to be at. That was the main takeaway here. That was the main takeaway. Okay, we have the white pieces, and the first very important thing that we need to illustrate in this endgame is that if black establishes this blockade, it's really hard to win. Rooks need open files. After this happens, the only open file is this one, and black's king can sit right here and cover all entry points. So this is going to be my first move. Now, maybe I could go here and take this back, because if he goes there, I have some bishop moves, but I'm going to elect to just get behind the pawns. Okay, our rook's active. Again, this pass pawn doesn't mean anything because I can always cover with my king if need be, but I'm just going to start attacking all his pawns and look to take them. And the main difference between the way that my opponent played with white last time and the way that I'm playing is that my rook is active. When the rook's actually doing something, it's going to be a lot more powerful than these pieces, but when it's confined to, white's half of the board, you barely feel, the power. So now I'm going to go bishop here, attack the knight, force it to move, and then we can take this pawn. Okay, I'm going to take this free piece. Get rid of that center pawn, obviously. Okay, I think we just, chase after these pawns, and as soon as we've got these pawns out of the way, we just go for the pass pawn and push it up the board. Okay, I think we just take this. I mean, he's got his bishop here, but obviously we're happy to trade. We're up a full rook. We've reached the most instructive point of the game. We've reached the most instructive point here. What I like to do is I like to protect my rook so that this can technically be pre-moved the entire way. Nice little bullet trick. GG. Hey, bud.
Oh, hi, Aman. How are you?
So, like I said, I chose this position specifically because I thought it'd be a lot simpler for you to blunder.
Oh yeah, you don't say that, eh?
I figured you'd be able to find the blunders easier because there's less pieces on the board, so you know which one you have to blunder.
Yeah. Oh, you have to under promote too, eh? You just have to have a little fun with your food.
Well, I definitely did when you're playing moves like rook takes knight.
Yeah.
Rook takes
I
knight.
hated your night. I hated it with a prejudice. I want to get it out of the way.
I felt that. I really felt that.
Could you feel the hate coming through the screen? Because it was loud and clear. I imagine you were the Montreal Canadiens, just taking my rage out all on you.
So here, um,
Oh my god. Oh boy.
so the premise of the position is a lot different from the last one. Like
Mhm.
obviously the concepts that are at play here way different. It's not an opening, it's not plans in that sense. These are plans of like, hey, you've got this position as white. You're up material, clearly. You've got a rook for a knight. And positions like this are ones that uh, can easily slip away. Like the conversion process is one of the hardest in chess. Like converting a winning
Right.
position is not easy to do, but there are usually things about your position that you might be able to notice or hone in on in order to make finding those plans a little bit easier. And the first one is understanding, what the benefit of having a rook over a knight is. Like
Right.
when you think of that imbalance, what does it mean to you? Like when you have a rook over a knight, you know it's 5 points versus 3 points. Like you're
Yeah, yeah.
winning in that sense, but why is it actually better in a practical sense, like in this position?
Right. Are you asking me or am I am I
Uh,
thinking about it?
Both.
Okay. Oh, I think I'm well, the moment you loaded the position, I was obviously quite pleased. I had the rook. Rooks are
Yep.
my friends. I saw your two pieces were lined up on the E file. I was quite happy to see that, but I found that the advantage that I had here was very scarily. Oh, it was very scary because often in my games I blunder my rook very, very easily to a knight check or a bishop just this comes across the map. So I was hesitant to celebrate my little win here because the moment I made the first couple of moves, I realized I hemmed in all my pieces together, and then it was just game over right after that.
Okay. That was that's a quick game over. That you were quite pleased, and then the game was over.
Yeah, most of my chess games go that way.
So you played this move, and I can only assume you were intending to push the pawn.
Yes, that
Right.
was my intention. I thought about pushing the pawn first. That was also my. I took some time, I think, in the opening move a little bit,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I wanted to support that pawn first. Get the rook to the open file, support that pawn.
Yep. The main imbalance, like obviously rook for knight, we've both got a bishop, but the rook for knight imbalance means that um, in order for the rook to actually, you know, display why it's more powerful than the knight or why it's worth 5 points, you do need some open files.
Right.
You have to use the rook, swinging side to side, being able to attack things that these pieces might have a hard time defending. Right now, this is a really solid structure, and it can't really be
Yep.
attacked, or it is being attacked, but it's so perfectly defended that it's not a threat at all.
Right.
So that's quite annoying for the starting position. But you need to create some way to use your rook because if you kind of let what happened occur, we just go
Yep.
like a couple moves forward. A position
Yep.
like this is still good for you as white. But you've definitely lost some of the edge because now there's only one open file, and if I get my
Yep.
king to that square, I'm gonna basically
Yep.
cover all the like entry points. And let's say I sit there and I say, hey, all right, you got the extra piece, man. You do all the work. You got to win. I don't have to do anything, and I just sit there. You need a plan, right? You need something. So somehow you need to open files, and if you're not gonna play the move that I did at the start, then you probably have to, let's say in this position, bringing the king to the middle looks like a great idea.
Yep.
Never ill-advised. But then you probably have to start like getting these pawns going and hope that I like take one of them, and then you'd have an open file.
Right. Yeah, that's. I mean, my thought process there was, I mean, first of all, in this position in front of the screen, I was not happy to put my bishop where it was. I kind of played the move, and then I was like, I'm kind of heading my rook in. It's not doing a whole heck of a lot here. I can't bring my bishop out anywhere that's like smart. Um, and so I was like, I got to do something here. So I don't remember what I did. It was just almost like PTSD now. It's just bad flashbacks.
Well, one thing is this bishop's actually really well placed because it covers everywhere my knight might want to go.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that was totally my
that
intention.
was your intention as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
figured.
yeah, yeah.
So I liked the move, but I was wondering if you went back because you wanted to be on this square, or because you maybe thought I was going to take it. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, it was take. I mean, in hindsight, after I played the move, I was like, I mean, you wouldn't take because you're down material, so I
Exactly.
was okay, but I was scared that you were gonna take it, and I was trying to get your bishop out first.
Yep. So it is a good move, but I could tell that you probably made that move not because you thought this was a good square, but because you're maybe worried about me
Seriously.
taking. And as you just pointed out, I would never take because I'm down significant material at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
So rook e1, can't complain about putting the rook on the only open file in a position, not at all. I think that this move is great, and I think the king just needs to reach the
yeah,
actual middle, right? Because you went king
yeah,
there, and then you started doing other stuff. So it's almost like you started this plan and then left it.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly my thought process. I started the plan, and then I think I pushed the G pawn because I wanted to get um my bishop to f4. Uh,
Right?
and so I could start. I mean, again, you wouldn't trade, so in hindsight, that's not maybe the smartest move, but you know, that's that's how the Gopher brain works.
That's what we want to know. That's what we want to know. But yeah, if you brought the king in the middle, this would absolutely be a very good idea. Your king would be able to watch the pawn. You know, it's ready to go to either side of the board if necessary. And your bishop is watching all these pesky knight moves that could bother your king on d3. And then from there, I would say like just pushing these pawns is the way to go. You gotta force a trade of some of these pawns so you can get an open file.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you went here. Definitely not a bad move, but I decided to go on h5, and I was curious how you're going to handle things because one of the things we just went over was how, you know, if I have like a dark square bishop, for example, it might be good for your pawns to be like this so that it kind of like
Yeah,
blunts the bishop.
yeah,
And I was expecting you to go here because I was
yeah,
like, oh, this is perfect. I just tricked Gopher into playing all his pawns on dark squares for me. And that's
yeah,
sort of what ended up happening. And now we
yeah,
get to the important lesson, which is the clarification that generally in like maybe the middle game, stuff like that, it's really effective to have pawns like this because this bishop just doesn't have like any scope, doesn't have anywhere to go, nothing to hit or attack comfortably, or no threats to make. But in an endgame, you can't attack any of my light squared pawns with a dark square bishop, and I can attack
yeah.
yours permanently for the rest of the game because this is like stuck on a dark square.
Right.
So you actually want now the exact opposite. So a great move for you here might be something like g4 maybe, so that I can't push my pawns up. Now, for example, this pawn, I can no longer play this because it's being attacked. You might want to play f4 next. King should
Yeah,
probably move up, but you want your pawns on light squares.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I delayed playing H because
You
I think
did.
again, like you mentioned, in naturally I would have played H4 just to like, oh, diagonal, so pretty, But it makes sense why, you're how it's weakened because you have the dark square bishop and
Yep.
that's just coming to the back. I didn't invite it to the back door, but it's coming.
It is. It is. This when you have the same color bishop as your opponent in the end game, you always want your pawns on the opposite color of both your
Yeah,
bishops. And if your
right.
pawns are ever stuck on the same color as both of them, it's not a good thing. So you went here, and I'm getting my pawns basically. I want everything in my position to be on a light square because you're all dark squares.
Yeah.
And then you make the remarkable move: rook takes pawn, or sorry, rook takes knight rather.
So
Truly
my logic.
remarkable. I need to hear the explanation for this.
So, I don't know if chat was listening to the commentary, but that knight, it's funny how you talk about the knight and how it can't really move. In my head, your knight was giving me so many problems because I felt like, again, in hindsight, I noticed that you wouldn't have traded off, but I was so aggravated by that knight that I was like, okay, yes, I'm trading off of Rook, like not smart, not have. I think I mentioned like not have it at all. But I really want to get rid of the knight so I can get my bishop out and then try to do something. Obviously, hindsight, not good. And then I also in my head was like, oh, sweet, he'll double up that pawn because I was worried about your three pawns on the queen side, I think it is.
Yep.
Kind of, and my two pawns on the king side. So I was kind of like, sorry, your 3 pawns on that side as well. So 3 versus 2. I was kind of worried about that. Um, Obviously not a good move. I'll fully admit to it. I'll own up to it. But I really wanted to get rid of that knight. It was giving me a lot of headaches.
So I did a good job selling the knight. I made you believe it
Okay,
was worth 5
absolutely.
points.
You made it worth more. It was like I was so scared to get my king out because of that knight. I wasn't able to calculate in my head like where can that knight go and check me.
Right.
Um, I think I calculated all the checks every move as well in case I was gonna blunder my pieces. But yeah, I just want to get rid of that knight in the center. It was too powerful in my obviously limited knowledge view.
So the a good pattern to remember is that when a knight and bishop exist nearby one another, if there's 2 squares in between them like this, then the bishop always covers every single forward square that the knight might want to go to.
Right. But yeah, I did not see that. I'll again own up to it. Like I did not see the power of that bishop. In fact, when I moved my bishop there, as I said, I was not happy with that move. Um, I was kind of like trying to figure out where to put my bishop next. How do I get it, somewhere else immediately?
Because the way that you've played, assuming that let's say somebody got the position and d5, which was at the very beginning, was something that wasn't possible, and black gets this move by force, the knight on d5. The way that you've played the position as white is absolutely not bad at all. Makes a lot of sense. This bishop is really good. If you bring the king out here and then follow up with some pawn pushes, it's practically ideal. So it's just funny that you're playing it really well, but you think that you're playing it terribly, and you're like,
Yeah, I just I don't know. In my scope again, in my view, as you had indicated, uh, my emphasis is how dangerous those knights are. I've lost many a queen, many a lady to the knight. So
right,
I don't have a lady here, but I certainly have that rook, and that knight was just
fair.
really giving me some headaches.
Yeah, because you realize you can't go forward anywhere. Then you realize maybe knight here. Oh, still can't go forward anywhere. Knight here. Oh, still can't go forward anywhere. So it's actually it's a great troll. It's like the emperor's new clothes or something. I
Yeah,
made everyone believe that this is a beautiful knight, and it is. It looks pretty, but it actually can't
yeah.
move anywhere. So I wasn't planning on moving that
Okay,
knight for a really long time. It's
that's
just gonna
that's
leave it
fair.
there. I was just gonna leave it there.
Wait for me to take it with my only powerful piece in the game, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was keen on.
It's a chessbrah 200 IQ right there, I tell you.
So you take, and this should be a draw, right? For sure. But
Oh,
it should be a draw based on the important rule that I just mentioned to you, which was pawns on the
yeah.
opposite color of the bishops. So absolutely the best move here for white should be what?
Um.
Following that rule specifically, without
Well,
calculating into anything else.
yeah. I want to get the pawns onto the light squares. Either the king. I would say either the king, bring the king in, which we talked about earlier, or move um my G pawn to a light square.
Yep. And the kings are always going to be good, but specifically following
Yeah.
the rule, it would definitely be g4.
Yeah.
And g4 instead of something like f3, just because f3 you can still play g4 next, but I would say more important is to play g4 because you've got your pawn supporting it and
Right.
you can already take back.
Yep.
But both f3 and g4 would be good. King would also
Yeah.
be good, but you want to establish this first. Let's say I take, then your next move is either the king or putting this pawn on f3. And what you'll
Yeah.
notice is
Knowing me,
that,
it would have been F3.
right, f3, let's say, and what you'll notice from a position like this is that if you just bring your king to the middle to watch the only pawn that is stuck on a dark square, unfortunately, if I attack it, you defend it, you'll notice that the pawn and the bishop do a good job, all the pawns do a good job of keeping the king out permanently from
Yeah.
passing into
Absolutely.
the. And what's your next move? Maybe this pawn up to that square, another light square.
Yeah. A4. Yeah.
And then from there, you can honestly just move the bishop around, do literally nothing.
So what you're telling me, Amon, is I had a chance to draw against a grandmaster, and I blew it all away with the rook sending it to the moon.
Yes, you started the game up a rook for a knight, and believe it or not, you had a chance for a draw.
Damn, I blew my low too early.
That
This
is
is
what
the
I'm
story of
saying.
my life.
That is what I'm saying.
All right.
But once
Damn.
we got to this end game, unfortunately, we see a
Yep.
pawn on a dark square.
Yep.
Bad start.
Yep.
Another pawn on a dark square, bad start. Even here, you're totally fine, right? You just go pawn here, light square.
Yeah.
Stop me from
Yeah.
invading, and you're planning to go here next. And that's another pawn
Yeah.
on a light square. You can still salvage this.
I was in full panic mode here, evidently by
Well, this
the moves.
definitely proves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the free pawn is gonna make my life too easy, unfortunately. And from here, king and pawn endgame, especially when I have an outside pass pawn, not gonna
Yeah.
be not gonna be difficult for black to convert.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense.
So definitely with the bishops, there's some important rules there. But when you have the rook against the knight, you
Yeah.
need an open something open to like rook e5 even. After I go
Yeah.
here, it's annoying because I'm about to play bishop here next, and you're just gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
Right, so what you needed to do was probably something like this. Maybe I go here, you go here again. You know, I might move the bishop, and at this point, you just need to start pushing pawns. If you go here and I take, your next move should be like this, and then just get the rook down there. That's already going to be better. Like, you have something for your rook to do. It's a powerful piece. Like, look how quickly you could get all the way around my position, just like 3 moves.
Yeah, that's fair. That is totally fair. I was just so hemmed in. Again, you're fucking dangerous knight there. Just
Yeah, it's super dangerous. It's not going anywhere.
because I think even if I did somehow see bringing rooks to open files, start infiltrating in the back, I'm very sure I would have blundered the rook. I'm
Yep.
almost confident I would have blundered the rook through some kind of knight check. So I not happy with my performance these past 2 games, but a lot of things to learn. A lot of good tips and tricks for endgame. Endgames are my weakest. I don't know if that I think I mentioned that earlier, but endgames are definitely my weakest because I tend to not know what to do with my pieces.
You did. I think you did mention it. I think you mentioned it right around here. Yeah, you mentioned it right here.
Yep.
Yeah. So the rook doesn't need a lot of explanation, and this game that we played next didn't last very long, but it's still worth showing just for the very beginning.
Yeah, let's just rip the fucking band-aid off here.
Just rip the band-aid off. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring this one back into the frame. And obviously, I've chosen this position for a reason because I'm not expecting you to play d5, and I am expecting to play d5 myself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I noted that the moment you played D5, my first comment was like, "Fuck that! That's what I should have done." And I thought about it and I didn't play it like an idiot.
It's not completely lost for black, so it's not like I've chosen a position where he's just dead lost after like one move.
Right.
Black can definitely still play the position after d5, but
Mm-hmm.
regardless, I think it's the way that white should play. Because even if you did this, you would still have
Mm-hmm.
to follow up, correctly, and it's not clear that you would have. But even if you don't,
Yep.
I'd much rather see you playing that way, because you just need an active piece. And once the rook
Yep.
gets behind this pawn, it's so hard to protect it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember taking a lot of time even analyzing um like what to do after the pawn push. Like I thought about, do I take with the pawn or do I try to bring my bishop in and attack your rook? Like I
Yep.
took some time thinking about my options, whether or not they were good options. That's up to chat because chat's the GM. So
They'll know. We'll ask them.
and
Yeah, you came up with
then I
this
started
move, which
hanging
is
pieces.
unfortunate because it's the only move that guards the pawn, but I
Yeah.
can immediately dislodge you, and you just have to move
Yep.
again, and I just take it anyway.
Yep. Yep. And I
Um,
think I hung the piece the next move as well.
you
Like
did you
I.
did hang the piece, which made things obviously very trivial for white. But seriously, even
Yep.
if you didn't, like, I'm taking this pawn, I'm going over here, I'm taking this pawn. It's not really different whether you have the piece or not.
It's good to know it was all downhill from the first move. I appreciate that.
Yeah, not quite from the first move. I would say from this move because knight
Yeah.
d8
Okay.
is very committal, whereas
Right.
maybe what I was expecting was something like maybe b5,
Right.
um, guards the pawn at least for a moment. And remember, you also have a pass pawn. I did sack a pawn for this, so you can also start
Yeah.
pushing this. Hit this
Right.
bishop.
I think I was so, and this is again very common. I'm sure I said it a million times in my commentary, but I tunnel in. I tunnel in on what's attacking me, so I don't even see like the other side of the board because my eyes are just drawn to that rook that's just poisoning my board here.
Yeah, that's the feeling though when the rook gets inside the position behind the pawns. That's the feeling where the rook is superior. Like that's when you actually start to realize, oh, that's why this fucking thing's worth 5 points.
Yeah.
Right? Because it feels like it's worth 5 points, and these really feel like they're nearly worthless when this guy just gets here and suddenly they just can't do anything.
Right.
So you need to make sure that your pieces feel as valuable as they are, because in the last game my knight might have felt like it was worth 5 points even though it's worth 3, and in this game
Right.
my rook feels like it's worth like 8 points even though it's worth 5.
Oh boy.
Right, so there's not much after this because
Yeah.
you just got an extra piece, but like I was saying, knight there, I'm going to kick your knight out and take this pawn. So just in terms of converting those winning positions or positions that you find to be winning, it might be that you have a chance to do it immediately with, especially if you have a rook for a knight. If you ever have a rook and you're trying to maximize the potential, you want to open things up, especially get an open file and penetrate the position. Your rooks are going to do a lot better, like inside your opponent's position, from behind, attacking things like pawns especially. Whereas if they're back here, they can't do that much. You gotta get them involved, get them at least past halfway. Whereas if you have the knight, which is what I had, you still got to maximize the knight. I know black's worse, we're down material, but we still have to do the best we can with the knight. And if we flip the board, the best we can do with the knight is put it on a square. Not a single pawn can attack us. Right in the center, he's got an isolated pawn. It's really good to occupy the square directly in front of that pawn as a universal rule. So this is going to be my plan with black. And if I get to do it, sure. If I don't, I mean, there's nothing I can do. It's white's turn, but that's what I'm gunning for.
Right. Oh boy. That's again like backwards knight moves, terrible for me.
Yeah, they're tough. They're tough. I definitely
But
was not expecting you to play d5, but if I had played rook d1 just like you did, I definitely think that there's a world where you could find knight c7 because you might see that I'm threatening to play d5, and honestly, that's the only move on the board that stops it. So if I had played the first move you did, I think knight c7 is in your wheelhouse to find, even if you aren't finding it for the right reason. And maybe you're not thinking, oh, I want to go there. You're just thinking, oh, I want to stop that.
yeah.
It could work out. But definitely, we're thinking about this position a little bit more as white. How do we activate our advantage, which is rook for knight, and we just need an open file. And remember, even if this fails and you just give up a pawn for nothing, I'd rather see you running around with your rook like a chicken with its head cut off and give a pawn back, because you're going to have more success there. And remember, a knight and a pawn, you still have a rook, you're still winning, even by material. So it's not like you're giving back something that, all of a sudden means you're losing if you don't play it right. Yeah, you're still winning.
Oh
Still
boy. I was winning for a second and then I played move 1.
Yeah, this is a position where you could say, oh yeah, I had you from the start, but made some fell apart later.
Yeah. Oh boy, lot to digest, but I appreciate the chance to discuss this with you. It's something to think about, but it's hopefully with some time and some practice we can get there.
Yep, there's gonna be, the point of the series is that even yourself, you'll get to see, and they're not going to be the exact same positions obviously, but you'll get to see how other people either similarly lower and higher rated than you approach similar types of positions, and how their thought process is going to work. Like, a similar imbalance for a higher rated player that might be a lot more drawn to a move like this, because they might think, oh, if black gets the knight there, well, fuck, that's such a strong piece. I got nothing after that. I just got to stop that. There's no way I can permit that to happen. So I might just play here, for just preventative reasons.